Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Vintage Motocross Radio. I am your host, Joe Abadi. Whether you're listening on your phone or on your computer, please take a moment to share the show with your friends on Facebook. And if you can, please allow StreamYard to see your name from Facebook. This way, when you comment, I can see exactly who it is. I can see James Costovo right now and a few others, but there are others that are commenting, and I can't see exactly who it is. So if you can allow StreamYard to see your name, that would be a big help. Today's show is, of course, brought to you by our sponsors, Nightmare Racing, the best reproduction Kawasaki plastic on the planet. Preston Petty Products, the legend continues. Amsoil, the first in synthetic oil since 1973. Full Circle Racing, for your rims, spokes, and lacing. Please see Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing. They do it for both vintage and modern bikes. Vinco, keep the ride going with over 650 products in their catalog. Motion Pro, for specialized tools and controls. Golan Industries, be sure to check out Golan Industries online for their fuel filter systems. It's quite like nothing else I've ever seen, Golan Industries. And be sure to visit all of our sponsors online and on Facebook. Please mark your calendar. Next week, the 22nd of November, my guest will be Tommy Croft. My guest this morning began his professional motocross career in 1980. In less than 2 short years, he was the winner of the AMA 250 national title, as well as the Supercross title the same year. In that time, he was also on the Motocross the Nations team, where he made history by being the first American team to win that event overall in 1981. In his rookie year, he finished 8th overall in 250 Supercross. In 1981, a respectable 6th in Supercross and an impressive 3rd overall in motocross. In 1982, he was on fire. He was unstoppable, winning 2 championships in Supercross and motocross. He was a member of Team Honda in those years, and in a moment, I'm going to find out just about how much time he spent with CanAm. Oh, also, I wanted to mention that he is on the Glen Helen Walk of Fame, along with Chuck's son, Danny Laporte, and Johnny OMara, of course, for their victory in 1981's at the Nations race. My guest this morning is Mr. Donnie Hansen. Donnie, are you with me?
I am, Joe.
Thank you for being here today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Donnie, you know, Racer X online, they have a thing called the Motocross Vault, and they show you taking 7th overall in Los Angeles in 1979 aboard a CanAm. Now, let's talk about those years with CanAm and maybe some of the other brands you rode before Honda. Were you on a CanAm in 79?
I was, yes. And that was my first Supercross race was at the LA Coliseum that year. I was a support rider for CanAm when Tony D and Rich Aristide were the factory CanAm riders that year.
Okay, and were you on CanAm before that, or you just happened to get that ride in 79?
I want to say I was on there for a couple of years. I want to say probably 78, 79.
Okay. Now, everyone has that moment in their youth when they see one rider or a bike that changes things for them. Who was that rider for you?
Did I say that again, Joe?
In other words, when we're young and we're growing up before we begin to race, when we're 14 or 15, or maybe it's just when you start to race, you may see see somebody who's an inspiration to you, or who makes you think, yes, this is something I want to do with the rest of my life. Who was that? Who was that person for you?
Well, there were several actually. I mean, guys like Roger DeCoster, Marty Smith. I remember being an amateur, and they had a Jim West Memorial race out there at my home track in Muncie, which was Valley Cycle Park too, out in Sleepy Valley. And I just started riding or started racing amateur. So, like I said, I was an amateur, and they had this Bob Hanna was one of them too. A big inspiration. He won that day, I believe, riding the Suzuki's. And
so you saw Marty Smith and Bob Hanna that day, and that's
no. Marty Smith wasn't there that day, but Bob Hanna was. But
okay.
But Marty was, in the magazines, and was a big inspiration. Or when I was reading the magazines and stuff during that time.
Now, what do you recall about some of your early races as an amateur? What tracks were you riding back then, and what bikes were you riding?
Well, I grew up in Southern California, Indian Dunes, Saddleback, Escape Country, Dianza, and I started off on Mako. I had a gentleman from the valley that was successful in his business, and he wanted to back someone in motocross. And during that time, I was racing scrambles, TTs, and flat tracks as an amateur teenager for a couple of years, and I was getting pretty good at it. And on a Bultaco Astro, 250 Bultaco Astro. But this gentleman, Ron Smith, he came to a mutual friend and asked if he knew of anyone, and he suggested me, but I was riding the TT some flat track. So we got together, the three of us, and I borrowed his bike, 250 Yamaha. This is like 73. And went and raced at Valley Cycle Park, and I won my first race, 250 novice class. So he took me under his wing, and my dad didn't have, a lot of money, so he liked the Makos, the German bikes back then. So every few months he'd buy me a new Mako and take us racing. We'd go up to Indian Dunes and Saddleback and Escape Country, Dianza, and all the local races in Southern California. And then once I got on a Yamaha and I finally found a bike, a Yamaha that I liked, I started riding the Yamahas. We started going with Yamahas because he knew that Japanese, that's where you had to be because they had the money, the backing. So we went to Yamaha, and eventually I got picked up by Yamaha Motor Corporation as a support rider. But I was just a number. There's so many other riders.
Okay.
And, So during that time, I was having, some issues with the frames cracking and stuff, and I couldn't get enough support from Yamaha that we wanted. So we got offered a CanAm support ride, which we figured, well, it's a smaller company, and we'll probably get more attention. So that's when we went to CanAm, and we went to Bob Barker. He was in Florida. He was a team manager at CanAm, and me and Greg Robertson. We worked for Colby out in Southern California. We were teammates as a sport rider, and they had us come to Florida to do some testing, and so we did that during the winter am, raced the winter am there, and did some testing. And the tracks back then were real rough, deep sand, and anyways, during that time, racing the winter am, that did do real good in that series, but mentally got strong mentally and physically, riding all the time, testing during the week and then racing. But I just knew when I got back home that I was going to be able to win at our local, Southern California tracks. And as it turned out, I did a lot of winning. And then come 1979, we raced the LA Coliseum for Colby. Colby Honda was my sponsor, and they sold Hondas and Can-Ams. But
Okay.
Had a good night, and finished 7th place behind Marty Tripes, first non-factory rider, and Arstead and Tony D, the factory Can-Ams, finished 19th and 20th. So between winning locally and doing good in that LA Coliseum, Jeff Smith at CanAm called me up and asked me if I wanted to, ride the factory Can-Am. And I said, yeah, that sounds good. So we had a handshake deal until we got the contract over the phone type deal. And $10,000 in factory bikes. Wow, that's great. And a week later, Colby Honda calls me and goes, Honda wants to talk to me. The factory wants to talk to me. So I got together with Honda, and they want to sponsor me on the factory Hondas, the Marty Smith, Marty Tripes, Tommy Croft bikes.
Yeah.
And pay you $20,000. Do you want to do it? And I go, I knew what I wanted to do, but I got to do the right thing. I go, let me get back to you. I'm going to talk to some people. Well, to make a long story short, it was a no-brainer. And yes, I ended up signing with Honda for 1980. That was a one-year deal. And as it turned out, I knew from reading the magazines and such that who was fast, but how fast are they? And not to mention, I got to learn the tracks that these guys ride, every year, So it was a big learning curve for me. But I finished 8th, finished top 10 in the premier class, the 250 class, in the indoors, and I had ankle problems throughout the outdoors, so I didn't do very good that first year. But after that 1 year, Honda came back to me. They wanted to sign me for 2 years, do a 2-year contract. So I signed another contract for 2 years. So for 81, 82, right. where I finished 6th in the Supercross, and I finished 3rd behind Howerton and Hanna on the outdoors. Okay, so now between the Supercross and the outdoor tracks, I know the tracks now. Because the first year I was out with this out of a lot of the outdoor national events because of my ankles. But now the second year, 81, I knew the tracks. So during that time, I guess about that time, OMara had signed with Honda in 1981. And he lived in the valley. I lived, in the valleys as well. But anyways, we got together. He raced Indian Dunes. I raced Indian Dunes as a local rider. So I got together with Johnny. I go, hey, you want to rent a room for me? I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to buy my first house. You want to rent a room? And he goes, yeah. So we got together and we trained together. We rode together. We pushed each other.
Just what was your training regimen like between you and Johnny OMara? I mean, what was a regular week like for you guys? Did you go out and ride a couple of days a week? Did you run? What did you do?
If we raced on when was it? It was a Sunday back then. You race whether it's a Supercross or outdoors, it was a Sunday. So Monday was rest day. Tuesday we would. We usually ran 5 miles, down in the sand washes and such. Come back, we load up and go out and do our motos on our practice bikes. We go out and, go get warmed up. Back then, our motos were, 40 minutes plus 2 laps, so 45 minutes. And so we go out there and I lived on the edge of the desert, or we did, it's August. So, sometimes it gets pretty brutal, triple digits. We put our sweatshirts on and put our jerseys on over the sweatshirts and put in, 45 to 50 minutes moto, put a couple motos in and after practice. So after that, we go do some play riding, go on the sand wash and climb embankments and just work on our skills and balance and such. And after we ride, we go down to the gym and go play some racquetball. Spend some time playing some racquetball, for a couple hours or whatever it was, an hour or two. And
so that was
periodically we do that, and then in between, spending time in the gym, working our endurance, or working on our weight training that we're scheduled to do.
Okay. Well, obviously, it was all business. It's not all fun and games and palm trees and the beach when you're a factory rider. Now, Donnie, I don't get a chance to ask many guys about this. I should have asked David Bailey, but no, this is perfect, actually. Let's talk about those RC Hondas a bit. And in other words, you're on a CanAm, you're on a Mako. Next thing you know, the biggest company in the industry calls you up and says, we want you to ride for us. You sign a contract with Honda. when do you see your first factory bike? What is that like? Are there mechanics there with you? When was the first time you saw your RC 250?
Yeah, I was out there. I believe it was the Indian Dunes. We was out training out in the sand. I was out there. I remember with Steve Wise, and the first year, 81 or 80 was the first year that Honda came out with the Pro Link, the one shock versus the double shocks. But so we were testing and riding it. Yes, we had our mechanics out there. We, as a team, we were out there as a team and riding the factory bikes and testing.
So is it just you and OMara, or is Tripes out there too? Who else is out there with you guys?
No, Tripes wasn't on the team when I signed.
Okay.
He was on. He must have been 79. Must have been his last year on Honda. Because
I think it was.
Because 1980 he was. It was Wise, Chuck's son, OMara, Richard Kuhn, Ron's son, Chuck's younger brother.
Yeah.
Richard Kuhn.
Was Gibson there yet?
Gibson. You know what? I think he was.
Okay. So
I think he was, yeah.
So now, do you guys go out there to practice at Indian Dunes or wherever you are? You're on these really expensive, very exotic bikes. After practice, that's it. They go back in the truck. You don't get to see these bikes again till what?
Correct.
Till race day. Till race day.
Yeah. They go back to Honda mechanics and do the thing on what they got to do on the bikes, get them ready for next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I heard this from a couple of different people, and I actually read it somewhere. I think it was either in a magazine or somebody mentioned it to me. Were there times where you didn't have Honda practice bikes? And here's what I heard. I heard you showed up at Weinert's house one day in Northridge with Yamahas on the back of your truck when you were signed for Honda. But those were your practice bikes. Any truth to that rumor?
Yes. It's funny, but so I signed with Honda in '79 from 1980. So until they got the new works bikes, they wouldn't, because Yamaha was a mono shock.
Yes. So
the new Honda was going to be a Pro Link, one shock. So for me to get familiarized with the bike, they bought me a Yamaha 250 Yamaha production bike. And so I'm wearing my Honda gear, my red, white, and blue Honda gear, practicing Indian Dunes on Yamaha. How fun is that?
It is. Donnie, when I read the story, or I'd heard the story before, I'm saying, there's no way that a guy with a factory contract for Honda is going to go practice in a public place on a Yamaha. But here it is. It is true. So I'm glad we straightened that out. Now, Donnie, I wanted to ask you something a little bit earlier, and I got a little off track. Before the Honda contract, before Can-Am, you're interested in riding. You're doing flat track races and stuff, and your dad is helping you out. Did you have a job? I mean, Mike Chamberlain said you worked for him at one time. Did you work for Chamberlain?
Yes, I was actually sweeping floors for Mike. He had a what the hell was it? Machine shop.
Yeah,
machine shop. And I was sweeping floors over there. I didn't have much, very many jobs. I was in school. I graduated in '78, and so from there, I might have had a couple side jobs, but not too many. I rode. Once I signed the contract, I rode all the time,
and that was it. That became your full-time job. Very early in your life. Earlier, Donnie, you mentioned you signed a contract with Honda for $20,000, but you must have had some other sponsors along the way. Who else was helping you other than factory Honda? You were a JT.
Well, O'Neill at the time.
O'Neill?
My first contract. So for the riding apparels, O'Neill. The helmet was Electro through O'Neill because he's a distributor. and then the oils, the chains, the everything else pertaining to the bike went through Honda. So I didn't get nothing. Just my ride, and goggles too. Goggles, riding apparel, helmet, and I think that was maybe boots.
Right.
Maybe boots. Maybe boots that first year, and then so that and then the second year, 81, I signed with JT, and JT's kind of the same thing, head to toe JT, and but the timing of everything worked out pretty good because like I mentioned, my second contract with Honda was a 2-year deal, 81, 82.
Mm-hmm.
82, I won everything. And so it's perfect timing. I was negotiating with Honda about my contract after the end of 82.
So you must have done pretty good. You must have done pretty good with bonus money in 82 as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because the contract money, wasn't much, but I got my foot in the door, and now it's time to make some serious money. But the first time we met, we didn't come to an agreement, and I said, "Well, let's just wait till we get back from Europe, from the destinations. We'll get back and meet again and talk this over, hash it out." Well, I went back there and I raced the last 250 World Championship over there in Vimmerby, Sweden, and I won both motos.
Yeah.
That's when Laporte for America, he won the title.
Yeah.
He's second American behind the Colonel.
The Colonel, Brad Lackey. We're going to get to all that in just a moment, Donnie, but I want to just back up a little bit. Your well-known nickname is, of course, Holeshot. Was that something that came naturally, good starts all of your career, or is there some special technique that maybe you could share with our listeners?
The CanAms had a really good motor,
Mm-hmm.
a Rotex motor, and so between that and the timing that I had was, it went together where I, Holeshot majority of my races. Just some things that you have to keep in mind as far as to get a good start. As far as time in the gate, as far as reaction time. Get that jump in front of your competitors. Coming out of the gate as straight as you can, shifting the bike. Best part of the power band, not over revving before shifting or not shifting too early where you're bogging. So the combination of everything, I just, I would put a start together pretty consistently.
Yeah.
So eventually, I don't know how I got the nickname, but it showed up on the back of my seat on my CanAm one day, and it kind of stuck. So that's kind of how I got the nickname.
I see. I get it. Hey, Donnie, your outdoor championship in 82, it came down to the wire in Colorado, and it was quite a battle between you, Glover, and Ricky Johnson. I'm sure you remember it, but can you walk us through that and what happened, what was going through your mind that day?
Yeah. So during the season between Glover, myself, and RJ, we had some good battles throughout the season. But when we went to Orange County, Saddleback Park, I remember Brock and I were dicing for the lead, and we came through a rhythm section, and there was a flagger a caution flag at the end of the rhythm section. Okay, there's a down rider somewhere, but I couldn't see him because of the rhythm section. So I'm in one line, and Glover's right behind me in another line. And as I jump out of the rhythm section, I landed on this down rider and crashed and smashed the pipe. Okay, so I DNF'd that moto. The other DNF was at St. Pete, Florida, where I got a flat tire. And so that was, each race was a potential 25 points. So I was down. I mean, that was a potential 50 points I could have gained that I lost. And coming down to the last race in Castle Rock, Colorado, I was 20 points behind Ricky, and then Brock was a few points behind me in third. So it was real close. We weren't close to RJ. I just figured he was going to win the championship, but I was going to go out there and win the race. So as it turned out, I holeshotted the first moto of the last event, and I'm racing the track. The last lap, 45 minutes, Brock passes me on the very last lap. He passes me, and we come to the last turn before the straightaway with a checker flag, and he takes the far inside, and I get right on the outside of him, and I carry some good momentum out of the turn, and I beat Brock by half a bite. So that was 25 points I gained right there. Meantime, RJ was back in the pack somewhere trying to catch us, and he wanted to try to win the moto apparently, and he overjumped the downhill section or something and broke a front wheel. So they went and changed the wheel and got back out there. He finished 22nd, so he got 0 points. Okay, so the last moto of the championship, I'm ahead by I don't know. I guess it was 5 points. If Ricky would win the last moto, all I had to do is finish third to clinch the title. So I'm thinking, I'm going after the title. I'm not gonna race with no one if I don't have to. So second moto, I holeshotted, and after I don't know however long it was, I hear a rider, and I let him go. It was Brock. So I get behind him, I follow him around for a bit. I hear another rider, and I let him go. It's RJ. We get side by side. He looks at me, shakes his head, and I just let him go. I got behind him, and that's how we finished. He finished second behind Brock. I finished third, and that's what I clinched the title.
Yep. I think it was like by 3 points, Donnie. But those other two incidents, of course, in Florida and the one in Southern California, put you a little behind the 8 ball. But in the end,
the Supercross Series, I won that premature. I won it. It's a 12 race series. I won it on the 11th round, and good thing because that's when I went back to Europe for 82.
Yeah.
Me and my teammates, not Bailey, but OMara,
Chuck Son and Daniel Laporte.
Was it Son?
Is Rebecca there helping us out a little this morning?
Yeah.
Hi, Becky. Hi. I'm glad you're there walking us through this. Because.
Well, I can tell you this: Danny Laporte was there.
I'm sure he was, Donnie. I'm sure he was. Hey, listen, I do want to get to that. You and Laporte, of course, Son and OMara, you guys made history in '81 at the Nations in Germany, and that was really the team that almost wasn't. Roger really put that together for you guys. What do you remember about how it all came together? Was it a last minute thing? When did you get the call, and how did it all happen?
Well, the original team that they were trying to put together for the U.S., whoever that was, like Hannah and Glover and the guys that were the top riders here in the country, in America, didn't, from what I remember, didn't really want to go. So Roger goes, I'll get my riders to go, which was me and OMara, Laporte, and Son. And we were considered a second-rate team. OMara just signed with Honda that year, '81, and it was my second year. Son and Laporte were veterans, but we were considered a second rate, a B team to the Europeans, the world champions, on their turf. So we shocked the world is what we did. The first weekend we was in Lomo, Belgium, one of the baddest tracks on the circuit in the world, and deep sand, huge whoops, and on the 250s. Now the world, each country, everyone's riding 250s. There's no different size bikes. Everyone rides 250s. And then you go next weekend where we went to, I believe it was Bilstein, Germany, where everyone rode 500s. The world rode 500s for this event. And so Belgium, Lomo, Belgium, we went out there and there was four riders, and the worst rider out of the four riders, they threw that out for each country. So it's the best three riders, best three overall, and they threw out the fourth one. So we had the lowest. We beat the Europeans on that breathless track.
And that's at the 250. That's a Trophy des Nations race in Lommel.
Right.
Okay, and that's exactly the week before. That's the week before Motocross of Nations.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was. And I think my motos were like a 6.9 in the motos, 6.9, and Johnny OMara and Daniel Port, from what I remember, did the best out of our group, and then Chuck, he had injured his ankle, so anyways, his score got thrown out. So then we went to Germany, where riding 500s, and again we got the best score, the lowest score out of the world, and my moto scores were second. I got a second the first moto behind Håkan Karlquist, and then in between motos it started drizzling, and it was hard packed at this track where it got really greasy. So all I was trying to do is stay up on two wheels, and anyways I finished inside the top 10. But we had the lowest score out of all the other countries, and we won that too. So between the trophy and Motocross des Nations, we were, we finally did it.
Yeah.
Been very, very proud and honored to be part of that event.
Yeah, because America went on a tear after you guys did that.
Yeah, I believe it's some 13 years straight we won before we finally lost.
Hey, Donnie, when you went over there for the Trophy des Nations and the Motocross des Nations, the bikes that you ride there, are those the bikes that you had in America? Do they send them to Europe, or you get different bikes when you get there?
No, those are our bikes. We Honda, they created them and sent them over to back there to Europe, where we raced our own bikes.
Okay, and you get the same.
From what I remember, that's how it went.
You get the same mechanic too.
Yes, yeah. Brian Lunas was my mechanic, and for the period I rode for Honda.
He was your mechanic for 2 years. Brian Lunas was
3 years.
3 years.
80, 81, 82. Yeah.
Donnie, while we're talking about this Trophy des Nations, or now it's of course known as the Moto of Nations, do you feel America should get much more involved in an effort to assemble a team every year for that?
Get more involved?
Yeah, sure.
Well, our riders are so committed, and they, the year is so stressful. And then when the riders go over to race, money races on their off time, it gets pretty old. But what was the question? I would listen to my wife. Was I a part of it?
No, Donnie. I'm asking you, do you think now, in today's times, do you think America should make a much better effort to assemble a team every year for the Nations race?
Yeah, I mean, it's important, but testing is a big deal, and again, the racers here, they're paid to represent their manufacturer in America, and the timing, they don't have a whole lot of time for their testing that they need to do for over there in Europe and those events. But I mean, they still got to be part of it.
Yeah.
Still got to be part of it. We got to represent our country and do the best we can. And yeah, it's been a little bit tough. It's been a little tough recently, but we're doing what we can.
You mentioned a little while ago, you mentioned Vimmerby, Sweden. You won the GP there in '82. You defeated the legendary George Jobet and a host of other Grand Prix racers who are all world contenders. Donnie, that day you suffered a crash, and I'm sorry, just after that you suffered a crash in a practice ride. And what do you recall about that day? Do you recall exactly what happened the day you got injured?
Well, yeah, kind of. So we was at Rolf Ditzenbach's practice track in Germany, and me and Danny Chandler, Magoo, were the first ones dressed for, putting some practice, whatever we're doing, practicing or doing some testing. We're on the track first.
Okay.
And so we're warming up, we're getting up to speed a little bit, and then I backed it down a little bit, just backing it down, and came up to this rhythm section where I screwed up. The time I landed wrong. However I landed, I don't remember, but I got out. That's where I got off, and it threw me over the bars or something, and landed on my head. So that right there that cost me my career.
Donnie, how long were you hospitalized in Europe after that wreck?
2 weeks. 2 weeks there, and then I was finally flown home for another 2 weeks in Oxnard, Southern California. A total of a month. But I bruised a part of my brain where I had to learn how to talk, had to learn how to walk again. Once I did get to where I was walking, I walked with a limp. It affected my right side. A part of my brain affected my right side of my body where, I'm right-handed, but I had to learn to shave. I had to learn to brush my teeth with my left hand. I walked with a limp. Not that nothing hurt. Nothing was hurt. It just my right side of my body was working with the left side. So
now, but Donnie, in other words, I know you were in a medically induced coma in Europe. Were you awake on the flight back to America?
I believe I was. I believe I had a seat. Yeah.
Okay. So now, when you say to me that they had to teach you to brush your teeth and shave again, who are they and where does that happen? In California or in Europe?
No, back in California.
Okay, so when you left Europe in that plane, you were not able to speak or do things like that?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but I thought I was sitting in a seat. I don't know where else I would be.
No, I'm just saying though. But were you able to speak and do those things? Like
I don't remember speaking. I don't remember that. I don't know what the deal is there. But
okay,
if I wasn't speaking very much.
Right, and you were by yourself on that flight back?
No, I was with my ex-wife, my first wife.
Okay. So now, when you get back to the hospital and you go to the hospital in California, you're there for another what? 2 weeks?
A couple weeks, yeah. And that's where working on stretch my body and doing the therapy, a little bit of therapy in the hospital there before I got released.
Okay.
So reading books, and trying to get my speech back.
Wow, Donnie, I've really never. You only read so much about it, and I don't think anyone has ever asked maybe the questions in detail that I'm asking. So, but I'm going to move on now, and I want to ask you something else. When did you learn that David Bailey had taken your place in that How America had done at the Nations at that point?
I don't know. I'm not sure when I found out, but I knew that David went in to take my place, and again they did as good enough to win the overall.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. Besides that, I don't know.
Okay. Now the really incredible thing is, Donnie, after such a serious injury and having to learn all those things again, you actually tried to return to professional racing once you recovered. How long was it before you tried to return? And who gave you a bike? Was Honda still behind you? What happened? How long after you crashed and went through all that did you try and get on a bike again?
Shoot, it was sometime. So this is 83 now. So I don't know how long. I'm going to say probably a half a year before I got on the bike. Now I was in the hospital in Oxnard, and I had a plastic surgeon friend of mine from Oxnard, and he came out with me to take my vital signs when I first got on the bike.
Mm-hmm.
And we went out to Indian Dunes, and they had an oval track with a jump in it. And I went around the track and over the jump, and take my vital signs and make sure everything is good and stuff. And then before I got on a motocross track, but things did not work out like I was expecting. I lost my timing, my balance. I lost the depth perception you need on the track. From jump to jump.
Yeah.
Just everything went to hell. And but I didn't give up. I throw myself down on the ground and get up, and kept working on it for who knows how many months it was. But we came to the last Supercross race, and I was with Honda, and Dave Arnold was the team manager, and we got out there during first practice, and I knew what had to be done to get each lap, but it wasn't working out.
Mm-hmm.
So I rode the second practice session, same thing. So at that time, that's when I said, I'm done racing. This ain't gonna work out.
Yeah. So, Donnie, when that chapter in your life closes as a racer, what goes through your mind as a young man, and what do you want to do with the rest of your life? What was on your mind?
Well, I learned a lot in my short period of racing professionally, and I did pretty good. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna teach the sport.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't very many people out there. Only name that comes to mind is Gary Bailey, David's dad.
Yes.
And we all knew that. But other than that, I didn't know of anyone teaching, especially in the West Coast, Southern California. So that's what I did. In fact, my first student was Jeff Matasevich, the chicken. But yeah, so that was the same year that Josh was born. So 36 years ago.
Josh, yeah, I was thinking about that, kind of doing the math a little bit, and yeah, Josh, of course, was after your crash and after your retirement, and you started the motocross schools. I also read where Eddie Cole was a big inspiration to you, Donnie, and gave you a lot of advice on the schools. Tell us a bit more about your time with Eddie Cole.
Yeah, Eddie Cole is a genuine person. He was there. He checked on me, quite a bit, and helped me any way he could, the various things, and I even worked for Eddie at Hansen Products. It's his first business that that he started before that. His other business. I know I worked for him for a little bit,
Okay.
but Eddie was a good friend, and he still is. What's that? Yeah, he's been a sponsor of the Motocross Academy since day one. So we've, Eddie and I used to race against each other in the Indians when he rode for CanAm, and before I rode for CanAm at Colby Honda, and then eventually he got out of racing. He raced professionally too. On the pro level, as well as locally, but eventually he got out of it. Him and his partner, his friend Fred Hoblet, started Hansen Products, the handlebars, and that was the start of what he's been doing all these years. But we stayed friends, throughout, and he's been a.
I know he's been there for you. He's been there for you with your schools and stuff too. And now, Donnie, when you first got started, you mentioned Jeff Matasevich was a student of yours. Were you were just doing some of the local tracks? Is that what you were doing when you first got started?
Yes.
When did it? Okay. When did it branch out for you to traveling to other places? When did, after a couple of years, or when did that begin?
Yeah, I'm not sure, Joe. I don't know how long it says. But when we moved to Texas. When we moved to Texas. 1985 moved to Texas, and my wife says that's when I started branching out and moving around the country and out of the country, different parts of the world. Yeah, it's been a good ride, but still,
All right, Donnie, look, on Facebook, I see you down in Southern California a lot during the week working with some of the top racers in the world. Barsha to Cianciarulo to Roxon. Who are some other guys that you trained other than Matasevich that came up through the ranks that we might know?
Andrew Short.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew Short and Josh trained together when I was living in Colorado. I had the boys working together. Who's some other ones? Tedesco.
Okay.
Yeah, and I worked with McGrath a little bit before he was Jeremy McGrath. When he was an amateur, a little bit LACR.
All right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so many of them that over the years that
it's hard to keep track of them all, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Donnie, do you offer training for racers who might compete in arena cross or supercross too, or do you just train them for outdoor stuff?
No, yeah, either or.
Whatever they want to do. Okay. And what about you train with all these pros, but what about the average rider or a novice rider? Do you get a lot of those people that come to your school as well?
Oh, that's the majority of it. That's a lot of amateurs, and what's funny is these riders they go out there and they finish mid-pack, and they think they need a better pipe or better suspension or whatever, and you pay a lot of money for these production bikes, and then you put money into them, and the results still not as good as they want it. Those riders need to take a small portion of that money and put it into themselves and learn how to ride what they have, and that makes a world of difference. I mean, riders, they take things for granted, but there's so much, these amateurs to learn. There's so much to learn, and when I'm done with these riders, they're so excited. They learn so much, and it makes me feel so good. I live to help these kids better themselves, and puts a big smile on my face.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it makes them safer too.
Where are your schools mostly held, Donnie? And what schools do you have coming up? Let's talk about that a bit.
Well, I have like half-day schools that I do, you know, each month during the week, as well as I'll take one day on the weekends. I have camps, my fall camps, 3-day camps, summertime, 3 and 4-day camps, fall time in Colorado, 2-day camps. So between Colorado doing the camps and private lessons there, in between camps, and coming back to Southern California, and doing my various lessons out here in Southern California. And every so often I'll go out to different states as well, but yeah, here in Southern California, mostly private to the smaller groups.
Okay. Now it seems, Donnie, that every Supercross season we see somebody, at least a couple of guys, getting sidelined with some serious injuries, and we know that they train, and we know that nutrition and the bike and everything else just seems to be in line. So it makes me think about the tracks and how they're designed. Do you feel those tracks should be tamed down a little bit, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's brutal. I mean, it's brutal. These 250 and 454 strokes. They got so much horsepower that the tracks are designed for the bikes. And it's just.
Well, they may be designed for the bike and how much the bike can handle, but what about the human aspect of it?
Oh yeah. Just you just gotta. Just takes one mess up that throws them down on the ground. Those guys they're intense. You're out there racing, giving 110%, and go through the whoops or jump the big doubles or triples on the outdoors and stuff. And if your time is off, then that's going to cost you. That's going to hurt. It's going to hurt you, seriously hurt you. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the downside of this sport. Back in the early 70s, when the bikes weren't as fast, or they didn't have the suspension, the tracks are built for those bikes, and it wasn't so severe when you got off as it is these days. But we all love it.
Yeah,
we love the sport. We love the competition. It's something.
So you're okay with the tracks being the way they are?
Yes.
Okay.
I am.
Okay.
I am. As an amateur, when Josh was an amateur, going these amateur races, when they were building the amateur tracks, like a pro track, making these jumps steep, doubles and such, I wasn't happy with it, because these amateurs, we got to build the sport and not take away from the sport. So I wasn't happy with the amateur tracks during that time. But the pros, and that's another thing. And I think if you don't make the tracks technical enough, then the riders will complain. They're too easy. Everyone's going the same speed. Mm-hmm. And the more technical, it's going to separate the guys, the better guys, from the guys that are not as good, and makes for good racing. But I like to see that whatever it is, the doubles or the triples, big jumps. I like to see them tapered, or not tapered, but forgiven. Yeah. So if you don't, your timing's off, you're not going to necessarily kill you, but you're going to lose some time. But I don't know.
Well, Donnie, what about another thing that when I look at a race, and I used to think it was great to watch, and it was a really cool place to watch guys make a pass, but after a while, it's the same thing over and over again, are these bowl turns. Do you think maybe they should include maybe some nice flat turns on some of these tracks? So where, a guy maybe comes in with a little harder on the brakes, or he's on the gas a little longer, or maybe he's got a flat track through that turn. Would you like to see maybe some flat turns on those tracks?
I think we get some of those. I mean, you get some of those, you get some of the ruts. And then you got to be able to, pick the right line, which I mean, you'll get some flat turns.
Okay.
You'll get those.
All right.
I don't know.
Donnie, a lot of people are familiar with your career and, of course, your son, Josh Hansen, multi-time medal winner at the X Games. But I know you got more people in that family of yours. You got a bunch of grandchildren, and I'd like to know more about them. Who's in the background there, Donnie?
Just my wife, Rebecca.
Well, but tell me about the kids, Donnie.
Oh, the kids.
Yeah.
Oh, I got Cade and Colt, who's my two boys from my daughter Caitlin.
Okay.
My youngest, and then Josh has his daughter, Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all Kennedy's almost 6, and Cade is 6, and Colt is 3. So we got a small team.
Yeah, you do, and then
we're playing ball. Cade's riding the bikes. He's got a little 50 that he rides every once in a while, but nothing serious. Playing ball and just being as active as we can, and in general,
Sure. So, Donnie, if people want to get in touch with you about your schools, where are you on social media?
Holeshot Hansen. Go to Holeshot Hansen. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Donnie Hansen Motocross, Donnie at dhma.com.
Mm-hmm.
You want to email me? What else? Hansen MXschool.com.
Okay.
That's
And Donnie, also I've got a slideshow going here, and I know you have some sponsors for your school. You mentioned Eddie Cole. Is there anybody else out there helping out with the Donnie Hansen Motocross Academy?
Motion Pro, Chris Carter, Motion Pro, Dunlop, Brock Glover, and Brian Fleck at Dunlop. Who else?
Renthal, Dunlop. Okay. All right. Is there anybody else you want to talk about this morning? Any other sponsors or anything else coming up?
I'm putting my December schedule for my half days.
Okay.
3 hours a day. And again, go to Holeshot Hansen. You can follow me on social media that way, or HansenMXschool.com. I have to see my calendar, and but I'll be working on my December schedule, and then start getting ready for Thanksgiving.
Oh, what a country, huh?
What a country! Have some get around with good friends and family, and have some good chicken and some good eats.
It sounds like a plan, Donnie, and some nice wine, and we're overdue.
We like our red, don't we, Joey?
Oh, we do, Donnie. We're Cabernet guys. My guest this morning has been Donnie Holeshot Hansen. Donnie, I want to thank you once again for joining me, and be sure to look up Donnie on Facebook and Instagram. He's got schools coming up, and Donnie, thank you again so much for speaking to me today.
Thank you, Joe, for having me, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there, and happy holidays.
Thanks, Donnie. We'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye-bye. My guest this morning has been Donnie Holeshot Hansen. Of course, a short career, but such an amazing one with his Motocross the Nations race and Trophy the Nations race, of course, 2 national championships, Motocross and in Supercross. I want to thank my sponsors again this morning for making this show possible. Nightmare Racing, the best reproduction Kawasaki plastic on the planet. Preston Petty Products, thank you, Paul Stannard. The legend continues. AMSOIL, the first in synthetic oil since 1973. Full Circle Racing for your rim, spokes, lacing, and truing needs for vintage and modern. Go to FullCircleRacingLimited.com. Vinco, keep the ride going. They have over 650 products in their catalog, and I guarantee there's something in there that you need. Motion Pro, for specialized tools, cables, and controls, go to MotionPro.com. Golan Industries, be sure to check them out. Their fuel filters and fuel systems, Golan Industries. Visit all of our sponsors online, Facebook, and on Instagram. Don't forget, next Sunday at 11 o'clock, my guest will be Mr. Tommy Croft. I'm looking forward to speaking to Tommy. Don't forget our Wednesday show, Vintage Motocross Q&A, and we are giving away a 1983 Honda CR250. You'll be hearing more about that on Wednesday. I'll have a video coming up about it. I want to thank you all for listening to me today at Vintage Motocross Radio. This is Joe Abadi. Enjoy the rest of your week and have a blessed day. Bye-bye.